Hello, this is lavender. You probably recognise it. In this video I'm going to talk about how to prune lavender, when to prune lavender, and why you should prune lavender, and also what happens if you don't prune lavender. Now this lavender runs all the way along this little cobbled path at the side of the cottage. It takes you from the back door of the cottage to the courtyard at the rear, and every time I walk along this path and brush against the lavender, particularly in the summer months, you get a lovely smell of lavender. This lavender is coming to the end of its second season. I haven't pruned it yet, but now that it's reached its ultimate height, or spread I should say, the spread and height that I want it to be at and remain at, I will now start pruning it annually. Because if you don't prune lavender annually, you can run into some problems. We'll talk about that in a moment. I have got some electric handheld hedge trimmers here. There's a link to those in the description box below this video. They're not that expensive and they're very useful, but you could also use shears. I've also got some secateurs. I've got a rake to clean up, and I've got some loppers. Again, all these products you can find in the description box below this video. I've got the loppers because on this occasion, and on one occasion only, I'm going to cut into some thick woody branch. I'm going to find a branch which is discreetly tucked away at the back and cut into it, and I'm going to use that branch as an example. It's not rocket science, but there is a technique to it, and if you don't follow that technique, it can go badly wrong and you can end up killing your lavender. I've killed a few of these in my time, and I don't want to kill these because they look brilliant in this, my Mediterranean scented border. I've got rosemary at the back there, I've got some thyme, I've got these lavender, and I've got my lollipop olives all the way through. So when do you prune lavender? There are two occasions in the gardening year when it's appropriate and correct to prune lavender, and those occasions are mid to late autumn but not into winter, or mid to late spring beyond winter. You want to avoid doing this when there is any frost, because as soon as you prune it, it'll start producing new little buds, and if it's frosty, those little buds might get damaged. So you want to do this a couple of weeks away from any of the first frosts or the last frosts. So that's when to do it. I'm going to talk about why next. Now, the problem with lavender is it continues growing and growing and growing, but it only produces green or new growth on its extremity, and what's left behind becomes a woody branch. And you might have seen them, I've seen them, where they've got almost like a lavender tree, very long woody stems with the lavender growing at the end and a great big hole in the middle. And I want to avoid that here because I want these to stay dome shaped and round, but I don't want to get too far into this pathway. So the next thing I'm going to do is take off a woody branch so that I can show you some growth from 2 years ago, last year and this year. And by doing that, I'll be able to demonstrate where you should be trying to prune it. So if I go down here at the back in a discreet position where it won't be too noticeable, I'll just lop off using these loppers a piece of woody lavender. So let's go for that piece down there, and out it comes. Let me bring it closer. That's the woody bit there. That's probably 2 or 3 years old, that piece of wood, but that has not grown any fresh growth from it, and that's probably last year's, and then we've got this year's at the end there, and it dies back and it becomes a completely woody branch here, and you'll end up with just the lavender at the extremity. Now, how does that impact how we prune the lavender? Well, the way it impacts how we prune the lavender is if you cut back into woody wood, it will never grow back. So if I were to take my secateurs and go all the way back here, it'll never grow back. So if you've killed one, it's probably because you've gone back too far. There is still some fresh growth here, so conceivably I could go back there, and where there's still some fresh growth, it will grow from. It will sprout out from there. But as I've already said, I go back there, I've got a problem. I'm into the old woody stem. So the trick is trying to find a tolerance between one extreme and taking enough off so that it makes a meaningful difference. So I'll be looking at taking probably about that much off the top of there, and if I do that, I can rest assured I've got some fresh growth beneath. I'm not going to do it with these because I've got 4 of these big bushes to prune. I'm going to do it with my handheld electric trimmers, but that's the technique, that's the trick. If you go any further back into the old wood, it won't ever grow again. If you leave some green shoots, that's where it will come back from. Simple as that. So how do you gauge where to cut to? That is trial and error, and you've got to do it by eye. And you'll probably get some wrong, but there's quite a few stems on these balls of lavender. So even if I cut some back into the old wood, the gaps will be filled in by the ones that do continue to grow next year, providing I don't take them all back to the old woody wood. Right, so let's get my handheld trimmers now and just start very carefully. I'll do this in waves, in phases. I won't do it all in one go, and I'll very gently gauge going further and further down. You'll notice, by the way, I've already taken off the lavender flowers. I did that about a month ago. I left them on the plants as long as I possibly could because they were so beneficial to the pollinating insects in my garden. But eventually, about a month ago, when it was looking like all going over, I gathered them all up, and I've got several little projects for my lavender bloom. So you'll notice there's no flowers. These were covered in thousands and thousands of flowers, and the bees have loved it all year. I want that again next year, but I'm going to manage the size. I will take care not to cut the trunks and the bark of my olive trees. Right, let's get pruning. There we go. A lavender pruned into a lovely kind of round but flat-topped cushion shape. It's like a pin cushion. 1 down, 5 more to go. I'll do those off camera. And don't forget the loppers, the secateurs, the handheld hedge trimmers and the thorn-proof gardening gloves are all available as links in the description box below this video. And I do appreciate you buying through my links because it pays for projects in the garden. A quick recap. When mid to late autumn but not into winter, avoid the frosts, or a mid to late spring, again to avoid the frosts. Why? To avoid it become a big straggly woody mess because it won't grow out of old wood. And how? Well, gauge it but prune to anywhere down to just about above where the fresh growth has come this year, and that way you'll get some nice new buds to grow out next year. Hope that's been useful and informative. If you've got any questions, put them in the description box below this video, and I'll see you soon for some more scented Mediterranean border adventures. It smells lovely here. Bye for now.